lead at the end of quarter one here.
And we're back. It's been not a therapy session for me. And also, folks, by the way, 303 podcasts, CFL, we're going to go back to the NFL because the NFL still is not the true bread and butter, but it's still what we want to talk about. Before we get started, I'm going to say this right now to you to help make you feel better about your situation.
Yeah.
The Giants have some pieces in place, but I don't even say rebuilding and retooling. I'm also going to say this. I don't think coaching or management should be gone at the end of the year.
Well, my theory with this whole situation is that I think that there's already been an arrangement made between Shane, Daboll, and Mara because Shane and Daboll have been strangely composed this entire season, even though the week-to-week product has been abysmal. And Mara has already said that they're going to be back next year. He said that several weeks ago, which was really weird to say that early on in the season when you're off to a rough start. And they're 2-8 right now.
Yeah.
And there's just this feeling that they were kind of in a no man's land situation this past offseason when it came to the quarterback situation, knowing that after 2023, they obviously were in a spot with Daniel Jones where they realized, oh my goodness, we've made a huge mistake. However, because of this guy,
yeah,
they couldn't get the quarterback. They're stuck in no man's land because JJ McCarthy, he needs time. He's not, we can see, right, the Vikings, before he got injured, the plan was never to start him this year. Michael Penix, has he seen a snap for the Falcons? No. Bo Nix, nice surprise. Over-delivered on expectations. Was not thought to be first-round material by most. It was thought to be a reach when the Broncos went for him. So the idea was that the Giants liked May and Daniels and couldn't get either one of them. So what I think is they went to Mara before the season started and said, okay, listen, Malik Neighbors, he is here right now for Daniel Jones. However, this is a pick for the next quarterback. We're not expecting we are prepared for Jones to be horrible once again. And I think that they had to have gotten some kind of preseason approval for a mulligan where it's like, hey, we thought we got fool's gold in 2022 with Daniel Jones. It was our first year, and we thought we stumbled across a winner. It turns out we have not stumbled across a winner. I think that they're going to be given the opportunity to pick their quarterback next year. The Giants are right now in a great spot to do that because between Sanders, between Ewers, between Ward, those are three premium options right there, and they're currently number 2 in the draft. So as long as they don't screw anything up, I will be rooting for their failure the rest of this season. For a while, it's easy to be like disgusted, horrified, angry, upset at what you're seeing. Don't get me wrong. It's a horrible football product. It's garbage. But at this point, the best thing for them is to just keep on losing. Just keep on losing. Don't mess this up like last year. Yes, there are some bright spots to the team this year. I think that the one big thing from the Giants this year is that everyone said that losing Saquon was going to destroy this team. And running the ball has been one thing that they've been able to deliver on pretty consistently this year. So Singletary was getting work. And then when they turned it over to Tracy's been really good. He's had 3 excellent games. So I think that, and the offensive line, it seems like Carmen Brasillo has done some good things over there. I'm excited to see what can happen with a real quarterback next year. Because obviously Daniel Jones, I would argue he's playing the worst football of his whole career this year.
So my thing with it is just I was never too high on Daniel, not because of just talent, but because of injury. ACL is it's not an easy injury to come back from. But at the same time, too, they eventually have to make a choice with him where if he gets hurt, you screw yourself long term. So if because I know you guys are on the bye week this week. I have no idea who you play next week.
The
Buccaneers, who are also coming off the bye, but then the Thursday game, obviously Thanksgiving Day against the Cowboys. It's basically from there on out. If you're 2-10 going into December, that's where you have to have the talks of ride the season out with Locker, DeVito, and just go from there. Because if Daniel plays and gets hurt, you just sewer yourself going forward. Meanwhile, the one spot I would say I'm impressed by with the Giants has been the defensive line. The defensive line is arguably one of the top units in the NFL, let alone just the NFC East. Like, I know the Eagles have some dogs. I know the Commanders have some good D linemen. The Cowboys are just atrocious. But that's the one thing with the Giants is that the Brian Burns acquisition has worked out very nicely for them. I think Kayvon Thibodeau is going to get – that's the other thing, too, with Daniel Jones. Kayvon Thibodeau is going to want a lot of money this coming offseason. So you basically have to pay the positions of need, draft and develop, and just get those free agents that, you know what, not so much for cast-offs, but the guys that, like, how you sign the Jermaine Illuminors and, like, you bring in the guys that you hope work on.
Yep.
My big thing with the Giants more than quarterback to work on is the secondary.
Oh, yeah, the secondary is definitely an action item. I mean, to your point, the defensive line has looked pretty good this year. Dexter Lawrence is having an incredible season. His start to the season was absolutely off the charts spectacular. Thibodeau has missed some time with injury. Burns, good. I will say big mistake by letting the deadline go by without trading Azeez Ojulari. Whatever you could have gotten for him, that's an example of a guy who you're obviously not going to re-sign because he's going to want starter money, and you don't need to bring him back because there's no reason to pay him like a starter, obviously. So they should have gotten something in return for him. He's going to be a goner. But yeah, I mean, they do have a pretty solid little, front seven. They've got some good defensive backs, but corner, big area of weakness outside of Drew Phillips, who's been good. Deonte Banks is looking like a bust. I think he's taken some steps backward this year. Cordell Flott, we know, stinks. They've got some, there's other guys back there like Pinnock and Newbin that are good, but they definitely need, to really invest in corner. If there's any moves that they can make this offseason to challenge Deonte Banks, because right now he is looking like a big-time first-round bust. He was basically, when he was drafted, he was kind of drafted for Wink Martindale. And now that he's gone, new defensive coordinator, he's just been really struggling this year. I mean, for Christ's sake, he got hurdled by Najee Harris in that Steelers game, and there was the lack of effort, when he's chasing Hurts down out of bounds. So I actually thought that there was a chance that he might have been flipped at the deadline too if they could have found like a taker for him. Like I could have seen like maybe the Ravens offering up something, but we got him probably for the rest of his rookie deal. So you got to bring in more pieces for sure. This team does have holes outside of the quarterback, but I would say that like watching this team week in and week out, they have been in a lot of close games, and I can safely say that Daniel Jones is the reason that they are 2-8. If they had a good quarterback, if you would put Joe Flacco on this team, I think that they have at least 3 more wins.
I don't know, because that's the thing with Flacco is, and it's going to bleed into the first game on our thing is I just think that last year was a Cinderella season because I think he's showing his age. Meanwhile, this game is in your division, and it's very intriguing. One, because Jake Elliott's missed 2 field goals. The other being, because here's the thing, here's how I view this game. Philadelphia wins, it's okay, do it again. Washington wins, it's a real notch on their belt to where you can take them seriously going forward.
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, I think that, like, I would put Washington right now in them and the Steelers, I put in very comparable classes where they've really just kind of gotten fat off of beating bad teams where they're good enough to beat all of the other mediocre middle-of-the-road teams, but are they for real against real competition?
Steelers still haven't played a divisional game this year. Steelers have yet to play a divisional game. Their first one's on Sunday.
Right, exactly. And then you look at their little winning streak that they've been on and who they've been beating, who these wins are coming against. I'm not entirely convinced on them at all. I'm not convinced that Russ Wilson is suddenly the Russ Wilson of old, or that the running game is going to hold up this consistently, against a better competition. And I mean, Washington, so far tonight, I mean, the defense has actually looked really good against the Eagles, so got to give them that. And I mean, Jaden Daniels he's having a great rookie year for sure. So it'll be an interesting second half of the season. I mean, these are 2 teams who are probably going to wind up in the playoffs, but the question is, are they a one and done, or are they going to make some noise?
The thing with me with Philly is they have to keep it up. Because Philly's in the same thing too. Because like Philly, look, if you look at some of their wins, like they beat Dallas, they beat Cleveland, they beat the Giants. Like there's their biggest win still is probably that Green Bay win in Brazil week 1.
It is.
there's and even to Jacksonville, because Philly will do this where they'll play some games where they look good, and then they'll play some games, for lack of a better word, they play with their food, and it's hey, you kind of let your guard down, then all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, we got to do this. Like, look at the Jacksonville game a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I was going to say the Jacksonville game is a perfect example. They almost let that one slip away despite the fact they were rolling over that team.
Yeah, because with Philadelphia, and I'll say this with the NFC as a whole, if I had to say right now, I think I can think of at least 3 teams that are probably locks to get into the playoffs, or 4 actually, at 4. I think it's Detroit, Minnesota, Atlanta, Philadelphia, and Washington. So that's 5.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't want to say anyone from the NFC West because, there is one team that if you've listened for a lot of time, that I'm kind of I don't want to say in love with, but infatuated with. That's Arizona at 6-4.
That's right. What a weird situation, that division, by the way, because
everyone's around 500. Everyone's hovering.
No, but yeah, I mean, that's the thing, that the cannibalization, injuries, I mean, you look at, because you kind of realize, looking at the current playoff picture with the NFC North and the NFC West, I feel like on a week-to-week basis, you would acknowledge almost all these teams I would say almost every single team in both divisions as being, competitive, formidable, good, for lack of a better word. And then you realize, oh, wait, there is not enough room in this postseason for all of them, or even half, or just about half of them, right? I think the North is probably going to wind up sending 2 teams. But it's clear now that the way things are shaking out, that the West is probably only going to send 1. Even though you look at this division,
there's going to be a 10-7 team that misses from the North.
Yeah, well, maybe.
Do you remember there was always cases a few years ago? Like, I know 2008, New England, the year Tom Brady tore his ACL, they went 11-5 and they missed. Because right now, I pulled up the playoff pictures from both. So as it goes right now, Detroit would get the bye, which I do think stands. I just think, look, even when they played bad, they still found a way to pull.
No, Detroit is absolutely loaded. That is a great team. I think that win against the Texans this week, that was the mark of a great team, because they were not able to, as Chris Collinsworth repeated throughout the broadcast for everybody who might be, have a sight deficiencies, and they weren't playing their game. The running game wasn't really working most of the way through. Goff threw 5 interceptions. They never really got ASB going. I think on paper, a lot of people expected this to be a bit of an air show shootout, and it was anything but. But Detroit, the defense stepped up huge, and they were able to grind their way to a game that they won on a last-second field goal. So the fact that they were able to win on the road too, win that kind of a game, I think really showed the character, and that last year wasn't a fluke. They look better than last year. The defense looks better than last year. I think that Gibbs is finding more consistency in the backfield. Jameson Williams, even, he is being used as much more of a WR2 this year. Last year, when he got involved, it was pretty much just for that one deep shot a game, and he is getting a lot more targets this year. He's definitely, he's outperformed ASB in several games, so they've got a nice 1-2 punch there. Then you got Laporta. There's just a lot of things to like about Detroit. I think that there's no reason not to think they're the class of the NFC right now.
My only thing with them is just come January, are you going to get in your own way again like you did in the NFC Championship game last year? That's my only concern with them. You go down with your habits. So with the playoffs, if the playoffs were to start today, the first game would be Philadelphia and Green Bay, 2-7. Mm-hmm. Atlanta, Washington, and Arizona, Minnesota.
Yeah, see, interesting one there. Like Atlanta, Atlanta's definitely, I think, benefiting from those injuries to the Bucs wide receivers, because I feel like the Bucs were the more refined team this year, the better coach team. I trust their defense a little bit more than Atlanta's, and there's the experience of Baker in this offense with Godwin and Evans. I think that taking those pieces away, it's going to make it really hard for them to. They've already started to dig the hole, and I mean Atlanta still looked pretty good for the most part. I mean, I think that Cousins is definitely airing it out, and as long as they're committing to Bijan Robinson and getting away from this freaking committee with Algier, then they can rack up points on most teams. So it seems like they'll definitely find their way to the division title. I don't know how far they're really going to wind up going in the playoffs, just because the defense is so suspect that they could pretty much lose to anybody when it gets into that shootout format. So you said it would be Atlanta and Washington, correct?
Yeah, it'd be Atlanta. So yeah, it was Atlanta, Washington, Minnesota, Arizona, and Green Bay, Philadelphia. I pulled up the whole the wild card standings right now. So the teams currently in the hunt, I would from this picture, I'd probably already eliminate you guys, the Panthers, the Saints, and the Cowboys. Those are the 4
you're
teams.
breaking my heart.
Those are the 4 teams I would safely say aren't going to pull off any miracles. But then you have Tampa Bay, Seattle, LA, Chicago, San Francisco, all in that realm, starting from 4-6 to 5-4. Tampa Bay, if they want any chance, they're going to have to go on a run ASAP. Seattle's the same. Seattle just can't lose those. There's a lot of those games that Seattle can't afford to lose down the stretch, especially the worst teams than them. The Rams, we don't know what we're going to get. The Bears, I'm sorry, that's just not happening. And the Niners, well, for all we know, they basically hop, skip, and jump, and they end up winning the NFC West.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Niners can still pull it off for sure. I mean, this game Sunday is huge between the Seahawks and the Niners. The winners definitely got a little bit of momentum, and it's like it could be like a big shifter, and kind of bury the opponent. I think that the Niners are going to pull that one off, and then you got the rest of their schedule. They got the Packers, the Bills, the Bears, the Rams, the Dolphins. And
that game, by the way, against the Bills, that's a huge Sunday night football game coming up in a couple weeks, Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah, that'll be massive. But you know something? Christian McCaffrey is back. We saw this happen when they acquired Christian McCaffrey. If you remember, the Niners were the first year that they got CMC, this team was, I think, 4-4. And then they got him and they absolutely ran the table. So now that he's back, that could be the missing piece for them as far as granted, Mason was good most games, but he also was getting injured. So he started off the season pretty red hot for them. And then there were games where he just he wasn't able to play all that much. You only got a few runs out of him, or he'd have to check out of games by the second quarter. So I mean, CMC has been their engine, what he offers both in the running game and as a receiver. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if with him back, all of a sudden they turn on the Jets and they are able to become that top flight team once again. Because I got to tell you, with Arizona, I'm still not entirely sold on them. James Conner is probably the most consistently, and Trey McBride, they've been the most consistent aspects of that team. But I don't trust that defense whatsoever. That's another team that anyone can score on them except for the Jets because they're completely incompetent. But anybody else would have no problem shredding that secondary to pieces. So they've got some upside. They've got some good players. Marvin Harrison Jr. has not had a terribly impressive rookie year, honestly. I thought that he was going to really light it up, and I think that we've seen glimpses from him.
He's this year's Bijan.
What's that?
He's this year's Bijan, especially for fantasy.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I think, I was buying into the hype because his college tape was so mind-blowing. But
he was the most NFL-ready prospect, too. That's the other thing. He was the guy who every analyst was saying, this guy's ready for the NFL out of every draft prospect.
Yeah. And for all we know, he might be in a different offense, but I just don't know if Kyler Murray has that gunslinger mentality to just feed this guy and spam the guy with targets like Justin Jefferson, gets fed. But it's just he's kind of been more of coming in for some big plays here and there. He's had a couple big weeks, but for the most part, he's been pretty run of the mill. But Trey McBride, on the other hand, he's been lighting it up most of the time. So what Arizona's doing is good. I feel like they're a team that's kind of at this point in the season, would you look at that? They're in first place. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if the Niners are able to retake the throne.
Yeah, and we'll get into that in a bit. But like those Jets we were talking about earlier, that is the first game this weekend. The New York Jets taking on the Indianapolis Colts. This game originally was supposed to be Sunday Night Football. Thank God it's not anymore. This game, honestly, is really hard to read, but I'm going Colts because just plain and simple, I can't. How do you expect me to believe into the Jets when they like lose to the Patriots in the way they did. Then they beat Houston, but then you go to Arizona and you effectively lay an egg. I've been hearing this theory from Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk.
Mm-hmm.
He's basically saying that eventually I think that there's a phantom injury that comes along with Aaron where he just kind of quietly shuts down for the rest of the year. But here's the other thing, too, with this organization. Devontae says, I'm only playing if Aaron's playing. Devontae's due $35 million next year. I don't think the Jets are going to pay him $35 million when the amount of rookies they have to pay, the rookies, but, guys on rookie deals who are coming up.
Yep.
So that's where it's a tough aspect of there. I think you're ahead of me as, oh, my God, that was a bad drop by Eckler.
No, we're synced up, baby.
Yeah, that was a terrible drop. But you know what I mean? So with this game here, too, because this is a game, honestly, this is the Colts season. The Colts the Colts are still in the hunt for a playoff spot. They're trying to get a wild card. They lose this game. That's pretty much kind of not kissing it goodbye, but, kind of effectively happening to them what happened to the Jets a few weeks ago in that Patriots game.
Yeah, I agree. And the Jets have had a hard time against the run all year long. And I feel like this is just an easy spot to just spam Jonathan Taylor. You've got Anthony Richardson back, so you're not going to be, asking the world of him. This is already a guy who, his limitations by this point. And I think with Taylor having the big game against the Bills, I think that they're going to build off of that. And, just feed the guy the whole time. The Jets offense has looked just so ugly, absolutely ugly, just about all season, except for there's been glimpses like the second half against the Texans, looking pretty good. And granted, the Colts do have a secondary that Rodgers should be able to test, but I just don't have confidence in this guy at this stage. Like, he's really, I think he's just been looking very washed up the entire season. There's been miscommunication. I've had the displeasure. We've had the displeasure of seeing too much of the Jets this year because they've been in prime time a lot. And
not again. They're in every single game from now to week 18 is 1:00 p.m.
Yeah. That's
Welcome
the
to
way it
hell,
ought
Danny.
to be. Yeah, that's the way it ought to be. I mean, Danny's accepted it. He's in tank mode too.
He doesn't even want to go on here anymore. They broke him.
Yeah, no. I mean, before the season, all I heard was how this was gonna be such a special season for the Jets. I mean, he wasn't the only one. I think it's Super Bowl aspirations. And to your point too about Rodgers, is it just me or does it seem like every time the Jets are losing a game by multiple scores, when it starts to get a little ugly in the second half, all of a sudden there he goes into the blue medical tent?
Yeah, that's why I'm saying the phantom injury thing that Mike Florio's been speculating on. If by a certain part in December they're eliminated from the playoffs, you kind of just play Jordan Travis and you see what we got, and then you go from there. But next year they're gonna have to restart because here's the thing too. He's gonna come out and say, "What did you expect me to do? We fire a coach," and it's like, well, you wanted the coach fired. So
yeah, exactly. The whole idea was that this is tailor-made for Aaron Rodgers. I'm sorry. I don't care who the coach is. It doesn't matter who the coach is. And the reason I say that is because when Tom Brady was with the Bucs, he was essentially like running the team because they basically said, "Hey, veteran legendary quarterback, come in here and you can do whatever you want to do." It's like, I don't think anyone bought for 1 second that Byron Leftwich was coordinating Tom Brady's offense. Right?
No, God, no.
No. Yeah, well, what's Byron Leftwich going to tell Tom Brady? So that same idea with Aaron Rodgers. He comes into an offense with Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson. You bring in his buddy Alan Lazard. Then you bring in Devontae Adams, and you still stink.
You've won one game since you got Adams. You've won one game.
Yep.
Think about that. So with this game, I think we're both leaning Colts because we don't want to talk about this game much.
Yep.
This next game, though, I'm going to use this word. This game is sexy on paper. It's the Ravens. It's the Steelers. It's just two teams who do not like each other. It's that football that you want to see. I fully expect this game to be a bloodbath. I'm going to be honest with you here. I like Mike Tomlin in an underdog spot. I know it sounds crazy, but think about divisional football. Anything can happen. I don't know if they're going to win the game, but I like them to keep it within the 3. I like the number.
Okay. Yeah. What's the spread? 3?
3. 3 is the spread.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, I think that's small enough. I think the Ravens will cover that. I would say with this game, so the Ravens and the Steelers have a history of a lot of ugly smash mouth physical.
Bet the under, by the way. Take the under.
Take the under. Yeah. I mean, the way the Ravens games have gone throughout much of this season would lead you to think the opposite, though, because the Ravens, it's been an out of character year for them. I think that the Ravens are a team that has a lot of upside. When the Ravens are firing, when they are going, they are the most dangerous offense in the NFL because you can't. There is no way. Like, there's really no way to game plan against them if Derrick Henry gets going, because what are you going to do? You're going to stack the box. You're going to leave yourself exposed on the outside if Lamar decides to scramble or if they decide to throw it over their heads to Zay Flowers, because Zay Flowers has been having an unbelievable breakout season. And so the Ravens, however, defensively, they've been an absolute sieve. They have been getting shredded up by just about everybody. So this, they've been in a lot of like shootout style games.
Because their secondary is terrible.
Yeah, the secondary is just absolutely atrocious. The thing is, though, I don't think that Pittsburgh has the manpower to keep up with them in a shootout. So if it becomes basically, it's the same story with every other Ravens game. If Derrick Henry gets going, then they're going to absolutely cruise. If Derrick Henry doesn't get going, then it's going to be a little tougher sledding. But as we saw against the Bengals, he was pretty mediocre, and they were still able to find a way to put up a ton of points in that one. So I lean Ravens covered here. Bengals did, yeah, they did cover. The Bengals might be the best 4-6 team that we've seen in years. I think
that, stop you there for a sec. So the what if standings are going around NFL Twitter right now. The Bengals are 8-2 if other results go their way.
8-2?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they've been in it. They've been in it, a lot of competitive games.
Yeah. So with this game here, I looked it up while you were talking. So since 2018, the Ravens have only beaten the Steelers 3 times. I'm here to say, I don't know. I think Baltimore wins the game, but honestly, in the last time that Baltimore won in Pittsburgh, fun fact, or the last time they beat them in general, the score was 6. So I'm going to look up a recent history of the scores just to tell you them all. But the last time they won was in Pittsburgh. It was 16-14. But here are the scores from
that's the thing, is that the history between these teams, usually games between the Ravens and the Steelers are like that. They're usually unders. They're usually ugly, physical, defensive games. It's just more like you could go historical, or you can look at how this season's gone for these particular iterations of both teams. So I mean, I would lean toward at least 20-point range here for both of them. We'll see. I don't think that this is going to be a Ravens Bengals by any stretch of the imagination. But the one thing I'll say to look out for here is a potential Deontay Johnson revenge spot, because Mike Tomlin was kind of disrespecting him in the press conference the other day where he was being interviewed, and he flat out said that they weren't worried about him, that there were other guys on the team that they were going to focus more on. So now that Deontay's had a couple weeks to get up to speed with the offense, we'll see if Lamar, if he's gained Lamar's trust. I mean, the Ravens are not a team that throws the ball more than they need to, but just something to look out for, that maybe because if they get him going as a viable number 2, I mean, we know what Deontay Johnson can do. Even on the trash, sorry-ass Panthers, he was delivering earlier this season. So I look for that as if they can get him going, that's just going to make them that much more dangerous come playoff time.
Yeah, so my only thing is just that this seems like a spot where everyone thinks the Ravens, because of how the Ravens have been looking lately, and the Ravens kind of have it's like a letdown spot. And also the fun fact, the last time that both teams scored over 20 points was 2019. So it's been, or 2020, excuse me. So it's been at least 3 seasons of only one team scoring above 20 points. Right now, I'm going to pull up the graphics. The number right now is at 48.5. I'm sorry that's too high of a number. That's way too high of a number for me for this game. So I'm going to say this. I think the Ravens win. I think the Steelers cover the number at a push even. I think this is a field goal game. And like I said earlier, hammer the number, hammer the under.
All righty then.
Tennessee versus the Minnesota Vikings. I'm not even overthinking this one. I think this is a bounce back spot for the Vikings. Sam Darnold has looked like a pumpkin, but this is a game, if you're serious, Minnesota, this is a game you win convincingly. You win by a touchdown or more.
Well, I would agree with that, but you could say the same thing about that Jaguars game last weekend. Boy, was that ugly. Oh my God, that was hideous. Minnesota should have. Think about how bad the Jaguars defense has been all year. The fact that they struggled their way to scoring 12 points, they didn't even score a touchdown against that team. I mean, but that I would hope that like that was their letdown game and they can bounce back here. They should have no problem at all. Tennessee, they should just be able to roll over these guys. So. Yeah, this shouldn't be close.
Exactly. It shouldn't be close, but you never know in the NFL. New Orleans Saints and Cleveland Browns. I honestly don't know how to read this game.
Ugly. Oh my goodness, ugly. Ugly.
Ooh, he's gone, folks. We don't have him
what?
on screen.
Where'd I go?
Yeah, your screen's cut off. All I see is now his camera's gone. I'm gonna take him away for a second. I'm going to let Jared fix his problems. I'm gonna let him fix his problems. But no, with this game right here, New Orleans, Cleveland. Oh, he's gone. He is gone. We'll get him rejoined in a bit. I'm going to have to vamp. But you know what? I can also do this. So we'll see what happens. Yard folks, we are back. I paused the recording and now we're back.
All right. Some kind of a glitch there. Yeah. All right. Well, we're back now.
We're back now. But yeah, New Orleans, Cleveland, like New Orleans got the bump, but I almost want to go with the Jameis revenge spot here,
That is a good point. I mean, the one thing I'll say is that the Saints seem very motivated. After the win last week, the new coach,
Really?
He sounded
like that was one of the best bets last week. Saints plus 3.5.
There you go. Yeah. Seemed like they kind of injected with some life there. I mean, they are gonna. I mean, this team though without Olave, I mean they're kind of limited.
No Olave, no Shaheed.
No Shaheed, yeah. I mean, it's just Kamara. The Browns have looked kind of soft, but, they could be due for one. I mean, Jameis, they're taking more risks on offense. Nick Chubb, healthy now. I feel like the Browns are kind of due for a win at this point. I wouldn't, I could definitely see it happening. Saints don't really scare anyone much. But, I could see this one going either way. Give me the JMO revenge. Why not?
I think I'm going to go Saints here because this seems like what the Saints do every year where they go on like a cute little run when it's too late and then all of a sudden it's like they're in the hunt and then like week 18 comes and it's like Saints can make the playoffs, but then they also need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cash. Oh, it's not even AJ Brown. Okay, I'm sorry. I have a parlay going tonight where I need the Eagles to win, AJ Brown 80 plus and a touchdown.
I need AJ for like 95 in the touchdown. So yeah, I wouldn't exactly mind an 18-yarder here.
Yeah, because I think he's at like 30 something yards right now, but
42.
Yeah, I don't know. I use FanDuel, and FanDuel does like the same game parlay boost for Thursday night, so I've been doing that the last few weeks. I had one last week. It didn't cash because I thought the under was going to hit, but I bet on Jamar Chase, and it really paid off.
Fanatics, baby. If it's legal.
I don't have that one. I'm going to go Saints just because, like I said, like the cutesy phony baloney run, and then they just kind of go from there. They take off as he got the first down. That's the other thing though. But fantasy Jalen Hurts. I'm waiting for the ticker to come along because I need to see what game is next. I can't believe I forgot. This happens to me a lot. Here's one. Detroit, Jacksonville. Only thing I have to say, you're serious, Detroit. This is where you bounce back and whoop them by you do what you did to Tennessee 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, this should be no problem. This is a simple, just feed the running backs and just let them do their thing. They should be able to just control the clock here. Monty, Gibbs, drive. Yeah.
Sonic and Knuckles.
Easy. Yep.
And then Green Bay, Chicago. Why do I'm so conflicted with this game because there's really two alternate universes with this game.
That was a call on first down.
There's the two alternate universes. There's one where the Bears beat the Packers for the first time in forever, and we get the Bears are back. They're 5-5. They're going to the playoffs. F Green Bay. And then there's a world where they get just run off the field, and then management and ownership finally sees, this team's really bad, and everyone's going to get fired in about a month and a half. There's those two alternate universes. That being said, though, I'm going and because I told Danny earlier, part of me is like, I like the Bears, but the more I think about it, Green Bay off the bye, I can't ignore that. I can't.
Oh yeah, I think that the ghost of Aaron Rodgers is going to inhabit the Packers here. Jordan Love, is going to be feeling the energy, and the Packers' recent history of absolutely whooping the Bears is going to return. I predicted this a few weeks back that the Bears were an early season surprise and they were going to enter a downward spiral in the second half. I think that this game is going to be emblematic of that. I think that they're just going to get demolished. I think that they're going to lose most of their games the rest of the way. And we're going to kind of chalk this up to Caleb Williams, a lot of growing pains. He's not ready to maximize all these weapons that they've littered this offense with. Because if you think about it, coming into the season, it just seemed like kind of like, is this team really going to arrive this early? They think Caleb Williams is just going to, be CJ Stroud off the rip, where you got DJ Moore and Keenan and freaking
Hey, DJ Moore, a lot of money.
paid a lot of money. Yeah, drafting Odunze in the first round, like thinking that you had this just powerhouse offense. And I was like, is he really going to be able to maximize the pieces here? Not so much. So, I think that the Packers off the bye, I feel like they're just going to be firing on all cylinders, and I could see them running away with this one. That's my prediction. I think the Packers are going to win by at least 14 points.
My thing is just the Bears looked incredibly lifeless last week. They looked like they had nothing. Like and we'll talk about New England, but like you let New England come in and just like have their way. That's the first time all year New England's done that, which God damn it.
Indeed.
And then we move on to Miami and Las Vegas. Las Vegas is coming off the bye, but for Miami, they're in must-win territory, and I'm sorry, the Raiders are a team that I said this all year long, where I was like, I had no faith in them. I just didn't, and it's showing. And this is just there's so many ugly games on the slate this week.
Yeah, I think that the Raiders are a hideous team, and I don't even think that highly of Miami because I feel like something's just wrong with their offense this year.
They'll beat the shitty teams, but they can't beat the good teams. It's every year.
Well, it's not even that. I mean, like,
with Big Rat back next week, folks, Miami, New England.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, Miami, if you think about the things that they did really well last year, where midway through the year, you could make an argument for them having one of the best offenses in the league. Because between Waddle and Hill, they were lighting it up most weeks, and the ground game was good to boot. But this year, even in the games that Tua has played, I mean, if you really think about it, you had that first game against Jacksonville where Waddle and Hill both went for over 100, and since then, it's been a whole lot of nothing out of this passing game. I mean, that game against the Rams on Monday, I mean, they kind of got away with one after, a pretty mediocre effort on offense the entire game. I mean, granted, give credit to the defense, I guess, but this is a team where when you've got like such a dangerous 1-2 punch and an explosive running back like Achane, and you're not like putting up points in bunches. Granted, this is a game where they should be able to do that. I would lean picking Miami here, but I don't think that this team is going to the playoffs. I feel like they're just going to screw up when they face a good team after this. This is an indictment on the Ravens, or sorry, the Raiders. It's an indictment on the Raiders being a bottom 3 team in the league. Maybe like they're in the conversation for the worst. I think right now it's them, the Giants, and then the Cowboys without Dak are up there as well.
Yeah. So that's the thing with Vegas. It's just I never bought into it. It's just the fact that it's like you basically went the Raiders are basically that kid where it's like you'll coast along school, you get a C, and it's like, oh, cool. We're I don't care, man. They're basically the stoner student. They're the high school stoner. That's what the Raiders are. And also, I found the title for this podcast. Moving on, my boys, New England versus the LA Rams. You get a New England team that, like, look, I'm not saying they're getting hot, but it's just it was so good to see what they did last week. Last week was probably one of the least stressful games I've had to watch them win in like less than over 2 years. I think 2022 was the last time I saw that. I'll say this though, I'm going to say this with pride.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I can't hear him. Can't hear him.
The show's really going off the rails, folks. I apologize.
There you go.
I think when I
All
grabbed the microphone, I did something to it, so I'm just going to talk through my MacBook for the rest of the show, just to, please. This is a prop. But no, this is a game where I think the Rams bounce back and get this because the Rams are the better team. Like New England's good. I can't fully invest in picking them against a team like this until they show it to me.
Yeah, no, I think that the Rams really need to have this one to have any hope of the playoffs whatsoever. And they're more dangerous than the Patriots are at this stage. I don't think Drake May is not capable of keeping up with an offense like this, and the Patriots defense isn't capable of stopping an offense like this. So I think that the Rams, there's just way more talent disproportionately in their favor here, with what they're coming in with this game with Kupp and Puka and Kyron finally all healthy together against the Patriots. This is just a team that they need to handle in order to get rolling and try to make a run at the playoffs because they've got a lot of ground to make up and they don't have a lot of room for error. So this is a game that they really got to have. And I mean, I will say this: that the Patriots this year coming in with I think the lowest expectations out of any team in the league. I think that you've seen what you've wanted to see from them. I think that Drake May he's looked pretty good at times. He's shown flashes, and for a team that's so devoid of weapons, I think that they're seeing where if you fortify this team a little bit and give Drake May more to work with, this is a guy who could develop into somebody in the next few years. So I think that he's shown some flashes and definitely some reason for optimism. And it's a good thing that they went to him so early in the year too.
Yeah, exactly. It's like looking at 25 when they get a wide receiver one, when they have 130 million plus in cap to spend, and they'll probably have a top 10 draft pick. Next game up in the dockets, Denver and Atlanta. I'm going to say this right now. I like the Broncos in this spot. Both teams had crappy losses last week, but Sean Payton, two of his best games have come against the NFL. All three of his most dominant wins this year was against the Buccaneers, the Saints, and the Panthers. He's trying to sweep his former division.
Yeah, I think that the Broncos here. So Broncos and Falcons. Wait, are we on that game already?
Broncos and Falcons. Yeah, we're on the 4:00 slate.
Broncos and Falcons. So this is a weird game for me. These teams are just so they're so opposite, and I guess I could make it interesting. I mean, I feel like this game is going to wind up being more of a defensive struggle. It might be more. Excuse me.
Like a 24-17.
Yeah, 24-17 maybe type. I mean, is Bo Nix prepared to? Is this going to be Bo Nix trying to play a Kirk Cousins game, or is this going to be the Falcons playing an old school Broncos smash mouth defense kind of a game? And you can kind of tell which format favors which team, right? I think that I lean Denver in this one for some reason. I feel like Atlanta's going to be like fish out of water here, and I could just see this being a game where they don't really get the offense going the way they want it to. I can see there being turnovers. I don't know. There's something that just strikes me like I feel like Denver's defense is going to make things a little bit more difficult on Atlanta than you might think.
Yeah, that's what.
Also, Darnell Mooney's questionable. If he's out and they're able to key in on stopping London, that could fuel the narrative a little bit.
Yeah, I just think this is a game that it's just because the way the two teams lost. Look, if you look at how Denver lost to Kansas City and how New Orleans lost to Atlanta, Atlanta deserved to lose a hell of a lot more than Denver did. So that's just where I get it from. But also then too, like I said, Denver's that frisky team where if they want to make the playoffs, these are games you have to win. San Francisco, Seattle. We were talking about this earlier. I'm going San Francisco. I like what Seattle's been able to do. I just don't think that Seattle's got the firepower to be competitive this year. I think with them, it's basically the same conversation that they're going to have next offseason, which is, do you go with Geno? Do you not go with Geno?
Yeah. I think that San Francisco, they've got
they need this game for divisional badly. They're 1-2 in the division.
Yeah, San Francisco, they handled Seattle well earlier in the year. They've got a lot of recent success against this team. And I think that that's going to continue here. I think that this is just a gotta-have game for San Fran. They are the better team. As I said at the start of the show, I think that not having CMC is what's held them back this year. And now that he's back, it's good that they were able to get a win over the Bucks where they didn't need the world from him. But you saw the difference that he made in the passing game. Wasn't getting a whole lot going on the ground, but as a receiver, really contributed to that win. I think this is a game where they're going to be able to just run it down their throats with him. So I look for the Niners to. I mean, this is a game where Mason was running it pretty well, and then I'm pretty sure he got hurt in that game when they played the first time. But he was having success on the ground prior to. So I look for San Fran to win this one.
Same. And then it's the game that CBS is just shoving down our throats. 425. I'm sorry. But they're literally posting this will feed families. I like these teams. I like Kansas City and Buffalo as teams, and I like the rivalry that's happened. It's just ever since that one playoff game, they market that every time these teams play, it's going to be this crazy ass football game. When the last couple of times that just is not what's happened.
Right.
Look, you're gonna have fucking Tony Romo laying there like a girl in a certain movie, going for fucking 3 hours, just basically treating each quarterback what's the best flavor of Krispy Kreme donuts. So, you're going to have that going on. You're going to have just all this craziness. I won't be too tuned into this just because obviously I'm getting ready for the Grey Cup. But with this game right here, I'm sorry. I know Buffalo's at home. I know Buffalo's looked good. And I know I really talk shit about Patrick Mahomes and covering high spreads. This is like Pittsburgh, though. When number 15 is an underdog, you do not go against him. And that's why I think Kansas City wins this game. And then they lose to the Carolina Panthers next week just because LOL. It's just one of those goofy-ass games where it's they have their worst game and then the Carolina's this, oh, my God, look at the Panthers. Or they get their ass kicked. But you know what I mean? That's where I think it comes into play.
I don't know.
For now, I'm not betting against Patrick Mahomes as an underdog.
Yeah, I just feel I think the Bills have earned a lot of goodwill by beating up another team that's just been beating up on bad teams. The win over Seattle was impressive, but you got a bunch of you're on this winning streak, right? 4-game win streak. The Colts,
the Jets, the Seahawks,
Seahawks. I take it back. It's a 5-game. The Titans, Seahawks, Dolphins. These aren't exactly high caliber opponents. And this is a team that really hasn't looked dominant all season long when you think about it. I mean, I just feel like with the subtractions of Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs, there's been a noticeable lack of, ability of Josh Allen to really dominate teams through the air. Dalton Kincaid was hyped up going into this year like he was going to have a Travis Kelce style season. That hasn't even remotely come close to happening. Khalil Shakir has had a mostly solid year, but he's not a guy that's going to light the world on fire.
Keon Coleman's been nice, though.
I'm sorry, what was that?
He's been nice. He's been good.
He's been nice and good. Exactly. Nice and good is different than dangerous. They haven't looked dangerous this year. And when I hear their potential class of the AFC, that's where I'll point to the Ravens. Despite the fact that they're not a perfect team and their defense has looked pretty crappy at times, this is still a team where when they're firing on all cylinders, you believe wow, they look incredible. I don't think I've ever gotten that vibe watching Buffalo this year that I'm being blown away by anything this team is doing. It's more all right, they're taking care of business. And that's about where it stops. And also, they've historically, the Chiefs have been their boogeyman. They've yet to really beat the Chiefs when it matters.
Not in the regular season, though.
Right. The regular season wins, but not. And the playoff losses have still haunted them big time. So I definitely buy into what you're saying with Patrick Mahomes as an underdog, and I also think that with this team getting. They're finally getting Travis Kelce going after he had a really bad start to the season, and bringing in DeAndre Hopkins. They obviously want him to be the WR1 now that Rashee Rice is out for the season. So, seems like they're, Mahomes is getting more comfortable, making those guys the focal points. And I look for them to go to 10-0 here. I mean, they're gonna lose when you least expect it.
That's why I say jokingly next Sunday against Carolina is the game they lose, just because LOL.
I don't think it's going to be Carolina, but yeah, I mean, they're not going to get to 17-0, but yeah, I think they're going to beat Buffalo.
One game I think they might lose is there's a couple. There's when they play Pittsburgh, but when they play the Raiders too, because the Raiders, for as bad as they are, they're not afraid of Kansas City.
True. Yeah,
I'm not saying it's going to happen. It's just like when you think of who can beat them, who.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I could see it coming against the Steelers or the Broncos. It could come down to the Broncos week 18.
Yeah,
and because the Broncos should have had that game, and it wasn't because it wasn't like an indictment on Kansas City. It was just the fact that knowing this rivalry, the Broncos are known for playing the Chiefs tough. And it felt like they were about to steal one.
Yeah.
And it would have made sense if they had lost that game.
Yep, they didn't cover though. Broncos covered the number. Sunday Night Football, Cincinnati versus the LA Chargers. Look, Cincinnati's been such an unlucky team this year. The Chargers low-key have been one of the better teams in the NFL. They're at 6-3. They just get overshadowed by the division they're in. But the Chargers continue to do their own thing. Everyone kind of mocked them. You didn't take a wide receiver one. Jim Harbaugh is building the team the way he wants, and they're winning football games. And they're going to continue to do that against the Chargers on Sunday. Against the Bengals on Sunday as the Chargers, excuse me.
Yeah, no, I mean, they've been, quietly, developing, a nice little passing game with, Quentin Johnson's been getting busy lately, and Lad McConkey is having a pretty good rookie year. The running game's been great because they recreated the Ravens backfield with J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, with J.K. having a really, really good year. So, yeah, I mean, I've been impressed by the things that they've been able to do. But I think that this is a gotta-have game for the Bengals. I do think that despite the fact that the Chargers have kind of overachieved this year, I do view that passing game still as limited. And I think that this is just a game where the Bengals are going to want to light it up with Burrow, and it's pretty much a must-have if they're going to stay in the playoff hunt. So I think that they're going to do what they have to do to win here. I think that you've got a good, they got a good group here. They're probably going to wind up, in the playoffs. So when all said and done, probably wind up with a wild card spot, the Chargers. But I think that the Bengals they're due for a win. All these competitive games that they've been losing, I feel like this is a game that they should win, and I think that they need it more. I think they're gonna play like it.
Exactly, and I don't think we need to say anything about Monday Night Football, Dallas versus Houston. Houston, if you're a serious team, you bounce back, you win this game. That's all I say. That's all I have to say about this game.
Yeah, Dallas is just they are truly like bottom of the league without Dak Prescott. There's nothing good about this team right now. Even CeeDee Lamb, that they can't make use of him, and they are just awful in every other area.
I want to say one thing about Dak Prescott, though. I still feel like he's one of the, and you may hate me or disagree with me on this, I feel like if he was in any other market, he would be a higher-rated quarterback and not as scrutinized. It's because he wears a star on his helmet. It comes with the territory, I know. But if you put Dak on the Commanders, they have Washington drafted him, and he's had the career he's had in Dallas and Washington. Most people view it as, hey, he's a solid NFLer. It's because he played for the Dallas Cowboys. You're delusionally expected to win championships every year, and he hasn't delivered that,
Right. No, I could definitely see that. I mean, I think that he does seem to be regressing a little bit, but I would argue it's with less talent around him than he had in other years. And I think that
not my fault. Senile. Not my fault. Jerry's senile.
Yeah, a little bit. Hard to disagree with that. Again, I do think that he is overcriticized a little bit, and this is a Giants fan who loves to poke fun at the Cowboys' misery. I think the insinuation that he is an awful quarterback is crazy. Because I've seen awful.
He's overly scrutinized. Overly scrutinized is like what I like to call it. Unfairly criticized.
I think he's unfairly criticized as well. I feel like he would, you look at a guy like Jared Goff, who is not a perfect quarterback by any means. You look at where he is right now and the people that he's surrounded with. He's a guy who you do need to surround him with talent. And Dak is probably one of those guys as well. I mean, most quarterbacks are. I mean, there's very few quarterbacks that are going to be able to overcome a lot of deficiencies when you've got, this just patchwork crappy offense that with absolutely no running game and no receiver depth behind one guy. I don't know what they were really expecting here. So, he got hurt too. So that stinks, but it's just another, once again, the Cowboys cycle, of like, to me, the Dak era and the Romo era are just so similar. It feels like I've been watching the same team for 20 years.
Exactly. It's rinse. I forgot what I was going to call the other title because, folks, for those of you who are watching this is going up tomorrow on Friday, but I've done 2 other podcasts today with Rick Zamperin and Adarius Pickett and now Jared. So, excuse me, but I'm going to call this one rinse, repeat Cowboys, basically because that's what it is every year with them. It's rinse, repeat, just Dallas Cowboy football. This, honestly, the more I looked at the slate, like I enjoyed talking with you about it, but like, Jesus Christ, there's not a lot of like wow factor to it. And I only say that because Kansas City and Buffalo is just so. It's like, when WWE is like, oh, this is going to be the greatest shit. Like, like in 2020 when they had the Edge Randy Orton match when it was like, this is going to be the greatest match of all time. And it's like, no, it's not. It's like Chiefs Bills. like CBS always tries to market it as what you're about to watch is going to be the greatest football game ever. Where in reality, it's no, they had one great football game. And now you always try to make it seem like they're going to duplicate that again and again and again and again and again. And that's not what happens.
Right.
One question I have for you, though, is, and I'm going to put on a prop to help me decipher this. I don't expect you to know the teams. I don't expect you to know the cities. The one thing I want to ask you is, Grey Cup 111 this weekend, as an outsider, if you had to say the names of Toronto or Winnipeg, who would you go with? Just pick one at random.
Toronto.
Ooh, we like it. We like it. So Jared's got Toronto. I got Toronto. It's all fun.
I do. Yeah. It's going to be Toronto, baby.
Oh, but anyway, guys, I'm going to put the hat back where it belongs on my wonderful display here. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it. Episode 328 in the bag. I'll be back next week with Big Rat 310 plus some more fallout from the Grey Cup. Enjoy the weekend of football, everyone.